This is the first example in these notes of how to solve a quadratic equation using the quadratic formula. So you start off by writing out the quadratic equation. X squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. And the first thing you check is everything on the left? Okay. Is everything on the left? Well, in this case, the x squared, 5x, and the 2 are on the left of the equal sign. Remember, when we talk about on the left or on the right, we mean relative to the equal sign. So everything here is on the left of the equal sign, and we just have a 0 on the right of the equal sign. So everything is on the left, which means we're ready to proceed. And if you didn't have everything on the left, you'd have to move it over there first before you can go to the next step. Okay, once we've done that, write out our a, b, and c, with which I think we're all familiar now. A is the number in front of x squared, so 1. B is the number in front of x, or the coefficient of x, so that's plus 5. And c is plus 2. Okay, so next, I want you to write out the formula, okay? Because you're going to have to remember these formula, I find the easiest way, once you've learned them, the easiest way to retain them and to remember them is to write them out every time you use them. And I'd agree with anyone who says this is mind-numbingly boring. It is. It's incredibly boring, but it's also the best way to remember it, I find. So if we write out the formula for the quadratic formula, it's going to tell us that x is equal to minus b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. And now just start to fill that in carefully, put everything into parentheses. It's not going to affect this one too much, but when we come to do a few more, the parentheses will actually be important. Okay, so x equals minus 5, or positive 5 if you want, plus or minus the square root of b, which is 5 squared minus 4 times 1 times 2, all over 2 times a, which was 1. Okay, so that's going to be x equals minus 5 plus or minus the square root. Okay, now in here, square this first piece first. So 5 squared is 25. And then as we multiply it this way. Multiply minus 4 by 1, which is minus 4, by 2. So it's minus 4 by 2 is minus 8. All over 2 times 1 is 2. And that gives you x is equal to minus 5 plus or minus the square root. 25 minus 18 is 7 over 2. So now we have two answers. Okay, we have two answers. X equals minus 5 plus the square root of 17 over 2, and x equals minus 5 minus the square root of 17 over 2. So those are our, oops, sorry, just made a mistake here with that line. Minus 5 minus root 17 over 2. So those are our two answers. Now, they don't mean very much to you, probably because square root of 17 is something that we don't have a very firm idea of. The square root of 16 is 4, so the square root of 17 will be a little bit more than 4. But it's not very, it's not great in terms of giving us a great idea of what the number is. So what we can do, and those, by the way, are the correct answers. Okay, that one and that one, those are the correct answers. But we can use our calculator to round it off to a certain number of decimal places. So let's pull up the calculator now. And we have, let's do the first one. Negative 5 plus the square root of 17. Okay, now don't divide by 2 yet. Okay, don't divide by 2. Just see what the top line, this is the top line of the first fraction. Okay, this is the top line of the first fraction, so don't divide by 2 yet. Press enter first and then divide by 2. Okay, but it's important that you press the enter first. So that gives you x is equal to, let's pull this up again, negative 0.43844. Negative 0.43844. And then we can check out this other one. So we have negative 5 minus the square root of 17. Again, don't divide yet, press enter first. Negative 9 divided by 2, negative 4.56155. Negative 4.56155. 56155. Now let's say we want to break these off, round these off to 2 decimal places. Okay, so we decide that, or maybe someone who's asking you a question decides that. We want to break them off after 2 decimal places, so count 2 numbers back after the decimal place and draw sort of a dividing line there. 2 places back after the decimal point, not 2 places from the start of the number, 2 places after the decimal point. And draw a dividing line there. And then that should give us our final answers. So this would be x is equal to negative 0.4. Now the 8 that was behind the wall here, behind the line, bumps this one up to 4. So x is approximately negative 0.44, or corrected 2 decimal places is negative 0.44. On this one we have x equals negative 4.56, because the 1 is too small to bump the 6 up. So let's say those are our answers correct to 2 decimal places. The earlier answers that included the square root sign, those were the actual exact precise answers. What we've got here are 2 approximations of that. Now, let's see, what does this mean graphically? Remember, let's go back and look at the question. Use the quadratic formula to solve an equation. We were solving an equation. Now remember what solving an equation means. It means where does it cross the x-axis? Okay, where does it cross the x-axis? Where is it equal to 0? Well, you can use either the 0 function on your calculator to do this, or if you want to, you can do it the way we showed you earlier in this course, and that is to go into the y equals. Let's just go back for 1 second so we can remember what the equation is. X squared plus 5x plus 2. So let's go in here. X squared plus 5x plus 2, and we had that equal to 0. So on the other side of the in the other entry, the other line, put in y2 equals 0. Okay, now let's graph each of those, and we'll do zoom 6 to graph them, and we get the parabola that we're used to getting. And then remember, solving an equation equal to 0 means find out where do the 2 lines intersect. So one line is the curve. I shouldn't say a line, it's not a line in math, it means a straight line. But we've got this curve, the graph of one, the left hand side of the equation, and the second equation was the y-axis, equal to 0. So where does this cross the y-axis? We can use the 0 command, or the way we looked at earlier, which is probably a little bit easier to do, is use second calc and 5, and enter, enter, enter. Okay, so negative 0.43844. Negative 0.43844. That's here. The graph crosses the x-axis. Okay, and if we look, negative 0.43844, that was our first answer. Okay, and then let's go back and do it for the second one. So second calc 5 again, but this time just move across close to where the graph crosses the x-axis again, hit enter, 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 and we get negative 0.4561553. Negative 4.561553. Okay, so what we're doing here, when we solve an equation, okay, so when we solve the equation, let's go back to it again. X squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. X squared plus 5x plus 2 equals 0. We are finding where the graph of y equals x squared plus 5x plus 2 crosses, touches the x-axis. Okay, so we can sketch that now. And you've already drawn it on your calculator, so you know what it looks like. It looks like this. Okay. And this is negative 4.56 on the x-axis. And this point is negative 0.44 on the x-axis. Okay, so what we've done, all that work with the quadratic formula, it's showing us where does the graph cross the x-axis. Now the question is that you might ask is, well, if you can do this on the calculator in 2 seconds, why don't you just do it on the calculator? That's not the point. What we're talking about here when we do this problem with the quadratic formula is how would you do this question? How would you do this question if you didn't have a calculator? How would you know where the graph of that equation crosses the x-axis? And we found a way to do it using the quadratic formula. Okay, this has been rather long, but we covered a lot of ground in this one, so thanks for sticking through it.